So I actually want to go back to the big thing about history, Walter, because I know that you've been sitting on this for a little while, and I think it's really interesting. So you had sort of mentioned, before your idea that we should basically forget about history, or there's a time and a place for us to forget about history. And I think that your point that if you're poor now, it doesn't really matter how you came to be that way. We should alleviate the poverty. I would 100% agree with that. Now, that said, Adolph, something that I find really useful about your work is that you often utilize or refer to history in a way that I think provides a lot of clarity on where our politics right now should go. And actually, I should say, one of our favorite guests on the show to date has been Touré Reed, who, of course, you both know. And I think that kind of at the height of the liberal hysteria around was the New Deal racist, he did something really useful and interesting, which was that he broke down exactly what the social and political and economic forces were that led to the creation of, say, Social Security or redlining, in a way that I think points us toward universalist uh, reclamation or expansion of public goods rather than what the liberals have been advocating for. Right. So this is a long-winded way of, saying, Walter, when is it that we should ignore history? And Adolph, when is it actually useful to invoke it?
Okay. Yeah, so if you want to do just a quick, just theoretical version, would be like history is useful because knowing the truth is useful. History is completely useless when your claim to social justice is founded on some causal account of how you were victimized. Right. So you can do it more specifically than that, but the things you're talking about with Touré and the New Deal, totally, it's completely useful to have people stop saying things which are false, especially if those things that they're saying that are false are helping them make their points. So even I, as anti-historicist as I've become, I'm not. I mean, I am going around saying, Marx should have said, it wasn't enough to say, if the philosophers have only understood the world, the point, however, is to change it. It's that, the bourgeois historians have only understood the past or known the past. The point, however, is to forget it. So I agree, however, that actually you can't just forget the past in the sense that, no, it's useful to know it. But when you're basing your claims to, in effect, justice now, to equality now, on bad things that have happened to you in the past, or bad things that have happened to your ancestors in the past. I mean, think about it this way. Marx, the whole goal, right? Communist Manifesto is what? Is that, it's from each according to his needs, right? Or to each according to his needs, from each according, to his abilities. It's not what's become the kind of current motivist. The current motivist is like, we're replacing as the key to social justice, socialism, with a kind of, unusually progressive and ambitious program of tort reform. But Marx could never have imagined, right, that the author, someone who said from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs, couldn't have anticipated the degree to which, at this point right now, to each according to his ability to establish a right of restitution with respect to property stolen from his ancestors would become a battle cry, not of the revanchist right, which is always trying to reclaim stuff that was stolen from its ancestors, but the supposedly progressive left. And that's, to me, Adolph has started saying a lot a couple of years ago, both in our conversations, but also more generally, that what we need as a kind of rallying point is just the idea of the public good. One of the triumphs of neoliberalism is that it's more or less eliminated the idea of the public good from our public discourse. But the point of the public good is that, when we want people to have jobs, we don't want them to have jobs because it satisfies some claims upon the past and their property rights in the past. We want them to have good jobs because it's part of the public good for everybody to have a good job. It has nothing to do with the history. So to me, the minute someone tells you, I mean, my God, the single most uttered phrase on the left is, the problem, until we come to terms with our racist, sexist, capitalist, whatever, until we come to terms with our history, we can never do anything. Once it is completely the opposite of truth. We should stop worrying about coming to terms with our history, which is in every respect about this, like everybody else's history, bad, and come to terms instead with what the requirements are of a truly public good. So the commitment to history is the source of justice and is dealing with it as the source of justice is intrinsically liberal and capitalist. It's a commitment to actually restoring to people private rights to property that they feel and may well be right have been unjustly taken from them. It's not as if the labor power of your great, 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 great grandparents wasn't stolen from you in slavery. And whatever you would have inherited from that wasn't stolen from you by slavery. It's not even as if the labor power of your great, great grandfather whose union was busted wasn't stolen from him by busting the union, and therefore should have been inherited by you. All that's true. All that's liberal private property. None of this has anything to do with socialism. Socialism does not rest on how you got ripped off. Socialism rests on an idea of the public good that has nothing to do with restoring to you rights that have been deprived from you in the past or even in the recent present.
Yeah. I mean, I agree completely with Walter on that. I mean, I think that what's strategically useful, right, about or pragmatically helpful about studying history, right? I mean, intellectually, but also, I mean, politically. Intellectually, like we all agree that knowing is better than not knowing, and like getting the story more or less straight is better than not. And what that relates to as part of the political challenge is denaturalization and demystification of 4 decades, or the products of 4 decades now, of neoliberal ideological hegemony and institutional hegemony, which has produced a common sense, and that takes us back to the public good idea, right? Also, I mean, the idea, the notion, and yeah, I mean, Christianity, crazy ass fucking individualist. I mean, Christianity has something to do with this too, but the idea that many people are walking around this country now believing that, my right, my self-conferred right, and like Touré points out that probably most of his students think that that their rights come from God or from themselves. And if not most, at least a plurality. But parrot, that I have an individual right, not to feel like a wimp for wearing a mask or getting vaccinated because Jenny McCarthy told me that vaccines are bad, and that right trumps no pun intended, concerns with the public health, or that I have a right to walk into a downtown mall with 2 AR-15s and a bazooka, just is testament to how badly we have lost in the public realm, right? On the struggle over public good, right? I mean, but I just wrote a couple of days ago that 3 of Thatcher's most infamous dicta are the one about there's no such thing as society, right? Only individuals and their families, and then the quip that economics is as she put it, because she's a Brit, the method. The point is to change the soul. And the third was when asked to reflect on her greatest accomplishment, she said, Tony Blair, because we got our opposition to change their minds. Well, they've won across the board on that. And the number one objective for us, I think now, to build the left. See, because here's problem number one, right? Is that leftists in this, by and large, or people who identify with the left. This is a usage that Samir Santi is suggesting that we propagate PWITITL or whatever the fuck it is.
It's not going to work.
Right, I'll get it straight. But no, look. Well, some other groups take a third of the alphabet. So, but what people don't want to take in, right, is that no matter how dire things are, you can't do what you need to do until you've done what you need to do before you get to do what you need to do, right? And I know that might sound like Charles, what's his name, at a Watts on 3rd Street band, but but one of the reasons that things are so dire is that the left hasn't been doing the work of trying to build a movement that's actually rooted in places and people with names and addresses and organizations and institutions the way the right has for the last 2/3 of a century. And people, so that feeds the fantasies like if we can just elect more Kashama Sawant, AOCs, whatever the fuck, I mean, I'll do it. Or we got to figure out what kind of position to take about Biden and never really get to the movement building work. And we're not going to go anywhere except the concentration camps unless we eventually start doing that work, right? And that takes us back to the public good question too, the issue of the public good. And I think, history's demystification is quite helpful. I mean, people, by and large, the younger and younger they get, like the less likely they are to recall that there used to be something called a weekend, right? Or a 40-hour week, right? Or much less, the history of jobs and work and how social categories like the employee have come into existence. But that's all part of the organizing work. That's not. That's certainly not. Well, actually, no. I will make one comment about. History is the basis for tort claims. That if you really examine it the right way, what you can show pretty quickly is that everybody would have some version of that tort claim, right? Except the tenth of a 1%, because all working people have been fucked over, and they weren't fucked over in ways that were pretty, right? So and it's just a losing game.
If you go back to like the Kendi thing, now you got me doing like totally,
This is the Thatcher thing.
You started it, Walter.
The idea of Kendi is actually totally on you. So I never should have done this show. But the thing about it would be is that if you go back to sort of like the idea of either everything you're doing is either racist or anti-racist, you just got to stop doing, the racist stuff. Mm-hmm. Reframe that. Everything you do is either capitalist or anti-capitalist. You just got to stop doing the capitalist stuff. It is not possible.
Right.
No one imagines it's possible.
Right.
All the kind of like bullshit moralism and the both and part, comes out in, you can sort of like move away from the racism part. You can stop doing this. You can never think about it. Every time you buy something, every time you go to your job, every time you do everything that we do every day, that is capitalism.
Right.
And you recognize that actually, no matter what you do about it, only organizing something that will at least fight capitalism and in principle might destroy capitalism, that's part of what it is to be anti-capitalist. It has nothing to do with like, where you buy, who you buy from, who you work for, nothing like that. None of that can get you out of it. You can't wish your way out of it. You can't imagine your way out of it. You can't produce a kind of etiquette for your way out of it. Right. The whole point of anti-racism is that it gives you stuff. No, you can do it every day of your life. You can actually stop being racist this week and stop being racist that way. You can follow the whole Kendi D'Angelo catechism. And that just actually, removes it from the realm of political economy or returns it to political economy only in the way that it's something your boss makes you do when he makes you have to read those stupid books and sit through that training and say the things they want you to say. And you're doing all that stuff. Why? Because whether you're racist or not racist, you sure as hell are a worker in a capitalist economy and you have a choice.
Actually, I just want to say, I think that Robin DiAngelo says that fighting racism is never done and you can never complete it, which is why, of course, you have to keep buying her seminars. Right.
But that's no doubt true.
I knew a couple of heroin dealers like that back.
Right, yeah.
And just another note on the history part. what's so frustrating about this moment is like when people are drawing on history, it's all the wrong lessons are being taken. Thinking about that D'Angelo quote about, it's a white people's responsibility to end racism. Doesn't that fly in the face of the whole civil rights movement?
Yeah.
Imagine if that was the perspective of African Americans.
In my view, it's a loser's game to try to say, problem is they're drawing the wrong lessons from history. We should go back and do this other thing and get them to draw the right lessons from history.
Yeah.
You can do that in the classroom, but where you may be doing anti-racist work. but you're not organizing, right? That's for like, and we're professors, so when I'm in the classroom, I totally try and tell the truth about the history. And you do it in your writing about the history as well. But actually, if you want to organize people to do what is in what you think and what you hope they will think is their best interest, correcting them about what the real account of the past is seems to me fourth or fifth down the road line of what's important. What's important is getting them to see what it is they need. The degree to what it is they need can be only gotten if it's something that we all need, and we all got to get together to get it. And so I totally understand the frustration when people are just flat out telling it wrong. I mean, it's like Peanuts cartoon, whoever was the person who always said everything wrong in that. So yeah, you got a bunch of people out there. I mean, my God, I'm an academic. You make your living by pointing out how people a lot more respectable than Ibram Kendi actually say things that are wrong. You sort of correct them, right. But you don't imagine that in doing so you're organizing a politics. You imagine in doing so that you're getting your article published, and the 3 graduate students who read it will realize that you were right and they were wrong. Right. It's fine, but it's not politics.
Right. Well, yeah. I want to add one thing to that point too. So I was thinking about it anyway. Like, this is another pathology of how people think about history, right? And this one is more on the left. Smart people who have expertise, or at least commitments that to immerse themselves in some facets of the past, right? Who can read, who also think that you read history to learn how to guide or how to make sense of current problems and how to guide practice. That's just as dangerous as the torch stuff in a different way, right? And I think we all know that this kind of debate goes on among left intellectuals all the time, and it doesn't have to be driven by disputes about how to interpret which holy books, but the logic certainly always comes back to something like that. But the idea that there are sort of trans-historical, theoretical, or trans-contextual, theoretical maxims or axioms that may have made sense in one way at point A and can therefore help guide us at point B or C is also wrong, both intellectually and is likely as not to be backward politically.
If you like this video from The Jacobin Show, please hit like and subscribe. You can also watch the full episode and catch our future live streams by clicking the join button below and becoming a Jacobin YouTube member. Thanks.